Welcome to the Inspired Hive podcast, where ideas ignite action and success stories fuel your next level up. I'm your host, Margo, and we're here to empower entrepreneurs, leaders, and professionals like you with the tools and inspiration to cultivate your dreams into reality. I am so excited to introduce you to my good friend, Mary Helen Gervais. She's an international best-selling author, speaker, intuitive strategist, and podcast co-host who's empowering visionary leaders and entrepreneurs to unlock our inner wisdom and share our divine gifts with the world. Her latest book, Heart Blaze, Igniting the Flame of Unconditional Love and Transformative Wisdom, is not just a book, it's a movement that fosters a deep connection to purpose, guiding others to tune into the whispers of their heart and the way of love that leads to balance. She guides us to live authentically, embrace our unique essence and talents, and to co-create with intention to make a meaningful impact through innovation, collaboration, and a balanced body, mind, and spirit. I've gotten to know Mary over the past decade through network marketing, and she is an amazing, beautiful soul who's been actively involved in women-owned business endeavors and entrepreneurship over the past 25 years. I know you'll be inspired by her story and the awesome nuggets she'll share with us today. Let's hear what they have to say.
Thank you, Margo. I'm so excited to be here. It is such an honor. Energy and all that you do. And I thank you for the invite to be on the podcast.
Well, I am so excited to hear your story. I've heard bits and pieces along the way, but I would love for you to tell us about where your story begins and kind of take us on your journey.
Sure. So, I mean, where does the story begin, right? I will say that I have always felt magic in my life, and I've always listened to my intuition deeply, even as a child. And if I'm really going to pinpoint something, I think the one point was when I was 16, I went to be a foreign exchange student. And here's the whole story behind that, because you have to apply the year before. So I was 15, I was in high school. And you have to, you go through this interview process with Rotary. And then basically for a year, they have you going on these weekends where you go to different cities and you meet Rotarians and you stay with their families, just so you get the essence of, what it is to be someplace new, to talk about where you're from because you're a spokesperson. And 3 weeks before I was supposed to leave, I got a phone call from Rotary International, and they said, we cannot send you. Things are not good with apartheid. There's too many uprisings, and we've deemed it not safe for any students to go this year. So I'm like, well, where can I go?
I love it. Pivot.
And the only place that they had opening was in Bolivia. Now, Margo, I had been studying French. So I was like, okay. And I'll never forget, because my parents were away on a business trip and my mom called me that night. And she's like, how are you? I'm like, great, Mom. Listen, I'm not going to South Africa anymore. I'm going to South America. And she's like, what are you talking about? So I explained to her the story. And she's like, well, we'll talk about that when we come home. And I'm like, oh no, Mom, I'm going. Like, at this point, so we didn't have the internet, right? So I'm pulling out the World Book encyclopedias and I'm reading. And I already been to the school library and I was like getting all like stuff. So it all started there, to be perfectly honest, because I have to say at 16, I had to experience to trust the unknown and follow the pull. It was my own inner guidance, to be honest. So for me, that is kind of where it all started. And that was the foundation really that shaped my journey. It was just this transformational process. I think that that has led up to, I was in corporate America, then I've been an entrepreneur for over 20 years. And it's always led me to know that I could do anything. I just needed to uncover the pathway as I went along.
What a profound experience. And to have that so early on, where a lot of folks might have just gone, okay, I guess I'm not going. And yet your drive for that travel, that experience, that do something different was so big. It didn't really matter kind of that there was a slight shift, that there was like, whoops, not this country, but let's go here. I see in how you describe your experience with that, how profound that is in the foundation work of realizing, yes, that's not exactly what you were envisioning, but it doesn't have to be the end of the story, that it really can be the spark of something equally interesting, but you have to shift and pivot with that. And what an awesome experience to have at such a young age. To test that out and try that on and really live through that. I imagine it's quite a big difference between South Africa and South America. Um, but all the same, so many opportunities that you allowed into your world at that time. I'm drawn in that you convinced your parents first off that that was an okay thing. How did they take that?
Well, I guess I learned at a young age how to paint things. Like, oh, well, think about this. I'm going to learn to become independent. I'm going to learn a second language. Think of how that is going to influence my career. That's just, Margo, how my brain has always worked. So I just kept coming up with those things. But it was almost like I always say life happens for us.
Mm,
Many times we're driving down the road and a detour comes up and we might not be expecting us, but it was meant to be there for us.
mhm.
Because I can tell you that every single job I had after I graduated from college, I ended up studying international business. I used my Spanish and it was, in the international field for one of my second job out of school was I worked in sales and marketing for a Chilean airline for 5 years. So I still got to travel, but I definitely could not have done that had I not, mastered Spanish. And then when I was in college, I spent a year studying in Spain. And the second semester, I did an internship in a company. So that's where I really got to hone, my vocabulary in the business world. And it's just like life happens for you if you let
Mm.
it. You did mention something about how, and it was when I was there, I remember I had to learn to surrender and be like, okay, I am by myself. Not that I didn't have people who loved me around me, because I had, family and friends that was living with, but I really had to, at a young age, start to find that balance of what I like to work with people about in business now is balancing that body, mind, and spirit so that
Mhm.
you can step into your purpose and show your uniqueness, make that impact that you want wherever you are.
That is such, I think, a big challenge for so many business folks that, they've got fantastic ideas, they can execute and kind of develop and produce and get to a space where it's comfortable. And oftentimes there's a stickiness there that, you know, they get used to that. It's where it should be and it's going, but they're sometimes overwhelmed or drowning in doing all of the things related to that. And I love this idea of being able to surrender to some of that process of being able to allow other things to come in and shine their way to help you with your business or with your growth. It's interesting as you were talking, I was thinking about the experience of these different areas that you learn as you're growing and as you're in college or developing your career that might not make sense as they're happening or unfolding. And it's like a kind of a quilt or a patchwork quilt where you're cultivating and learning all these different kinds of things, but then all of a sudden it makes sense as you're looking back through that path and that journey because it's led you to where you are in the moment, but you wouldn't necessarily have predicted that or planned it that way to begin with. And it speaks to that next kind of ultimate layer of something else guiding or something else, that magical component being a part of your journey. I'm curious if or what you have looked to in terms of what inspires you. What has been that kind of pull for you?
Well, before I start that, I want to say I love your analogy of the quilt because
Mm.
I look at things as a tapestry. Our life,
Mm.
we are creating the tapestry, and that tapestry is not finished until the day that we die because it's always we're filling it in and changing it,
Uh-huh.
and it's kind of just like this story. So, it's beautiful analogy that you did there with the quilt. So, what inspires me, and especially now? So, I was truly blessed. A part of my entrepreneurial journey, we have moved 7 times in 30 years in my marriage because of my
Mm.
husband's work. So, I have always been the one who's kind of been reinventing myself. You take the transferable skills and you pass them along. So, when we landed in Rhode Island, I was finishing up my MBA and I started doing informational interviewing out in the community with different people because I wanted to get to know people. Someone approached me that the Women's Business Center for the state was looking for a director. They didn't have anyone to run it. And they also were looking for someone who spoke Spanish because there's a large population there of individuals from the Dominican Republic who are business owners. So, long story short, I applied and I took the job as the director. And I loved it because for 3 years, I helped women start, build, and grow businesses. So, what inspired me and what continues to inspire me, especially in the coaching and the mentoring side of things, is when you see that extraordinary potential within each person
Mm.
and you can see that they have these natural gifts. How to work with people and like, let's achieve that harmony because it all comes down to that balance of the body, mind, and spirit. And how do we take that and the wisdom and in the interconnectedness of all things? And this is where my book Heart Lace comes in because truly it for me is a movement of the fabric. I'm going to go back to the tapestry
Mm.
of the existence of the power of love and the love inside of ourself, of loving ourselves who we are in our essence, in that wisdom, that ancient wisdom that we all have inside. We just have to tap into it. And once we have that energy and we know it inside of ourselves, we can take this ball of energy and put it out into the world. And then we can start to collaborate and co create with others. And that's when it just gets bigger and bigger. It really just inspires me when I see individuals who take their passions and their uniqueness and what they're truly gifted at, because we all have these natural gifts, and they work with them
Mm.
and they share them with the world.
I love that energy of how you're describing when people really focus in on their inner talent and their, magic of just seeing that grow and blossom. It's so interesting in both life and a business world that in many instances, folks either haven't found or recognized their own magic and being able to help kind of peel that onion and uncover that and help them pull their tapestry together. And I love your tapestry analogy because it really is weaving those fibers that are the core, the energy, but also laying that foundation for them to build upon and grow. And, there's certainly similarities to watching our kids grow and develop and learn and evolve over time, but it's so rich to experience that with others. So I love how you take that as your inspiration for the things that you're doing and moving that into the next level. I've been enjoying your Heart Blaze book and really digging into kind of the contemplative components that I think a lot of times in business we're so focused on the action and the doing that really taking time for balancing our core and our spirit and thriving on that to feed and fuel our action is so important. And I love how you kind of blend that together in the work that you're doing.
Thank you. And Margo, I will tell you that when I was working with women at the Women's Business Center, I had women come in and it could be they were getting a loan for $2 million, or it could be a different decision about marketing or whatever. And they would come in and they'd be like, I'm stuck. I just don't know what to do. And that's when I would say, we're just going to sit here for 2 minutes. I really want you to just close your eyes, and I'd say, what are
Mm,
you really feeling? How does this feel to you? How does this feel in your heart? What is that sensation that you're getting? Because I knew that they knew the answer, but the world is so busy around us in business and in life with family. We are balancing so many things that sometimes we cannot find that space or that moment to really sit and reflect and feel the core answer. And that's what I talk about, part of the ancient wisdom that we have in us,
mhm.
because we know that, but life is too busy. And sometimes we have never been taught to do that, or we forget to do that.
I love that. You talked about that earlier of having this intuition that you were very aware of early on and as a young child. And I think, you know, we all have that, but the degree to which we allow it to be present for us or that we focus on it or even listen to it, it really depends upon what that culture has been in terms of either our family growth or our business culture growth. That it's not necessarily those things that they teach us in school, right? And that's kind of the journey of this podcast came about from things that really are gaps that we don't get in our professional training or our business training. And to really feel the essence of where to move in business or where to move in life, we have to come back to that core. So I love how you balance that out and bring that to the work that you do with folks from an entrepreneurial side. Who do you follow for your inspiration?
Oh, so many. I'm going to tell you, I follow whatever resonates with me in the moment. It could be a
Oh,
book, it could be an idea, it could be a podcast. I actually, I ask friends, what are you listening to or what are you reading? And and I see if that aligns with my current path. But I will tell you a great example of a book that really deeply validated my spiritual experiences and gave me the confidence to, I think, trust my intuition, my inner guidance, and even to take that step to write about my own in Heart Blaze
mm,
was years ago. I read the book, Brian Weiss's Many Lives, Many Masters. That really stuck with me. It kind of was like, yeah, my whispers of the heart. Yeah, they're true. That's my inner wisdom. So I'm just one of those feelers, whatever is out there and whatever I'm connected to. And let's just talk a second about the energy of attraction.
mm,
Because when, if you're looking for something or you feel something, stop and ask yourself, what is it that I like about this? Or why is this? so attractive to me because that is your intuition once again, guiding you that, hey, maybe you should take that course, or maybe you should go listen to this or speaker somewhere, or maybe you should listen to a podcast, or if you're in a bookstore or even a magazine. I at my house get the magazine Entrepreneur, and there was a whole article thing about AI the other day, and I'm like, oh, this is so interesting. So you just, whatever it is that intrigues you, it's like there's something, probably a message there that is
Mhm.
going to align with you.
And it's not like following shiny objects all over the place, but it's really in feeding and fueling those nuggets of kind of things that are inspiring to you at the moment. And I think equally important not to keep doing things that aren't serving you as much. And I think I see that a lot in folks that, they're just so zoned in and focused on something, and it's such a big routine that they can't make adaptation or change to that. But yet, as humans and as growth focused kind of businesses, we all have to shift and pivot a bit. It doesn't mean we're fully unaligned with where we're going or what we're doing, but to allow that to kind of fill your essence and move you forward, I think is just so, so important. So thank you for that. I'm curious what your biggest lesson has been. Maybe if you're open to sharing that with folks.
My biggest lesson, I think, a lesson, I'm going to say this is a lesson in just truly being myself. And this is funny because this started, I realized it when I came home from being in a foreign exchange student. So now what? I'm on the end of being 16, right? When I came home, I had changed and grown so much as an individual in the world that I realized my senior year, which was my last year when I came back, I changed almost every single person in my friend group. I was like, wow, I am such a different person. I was so much more accepting and so much more open to everyone. I was always a kind person, but I was just like, no, let's just let people be who they are and not say, why aren't they like us? And I look back at now, and I mean, I'm 59. So here I am, like going, my senior year, I had just turned 17. And I was like, wow, that was pretty profound at that age to even start to realize that. So that was a lesson that I think that always stuck with me is we are all different. We are all in different phases. And I have grown along that. And it probably wasn't till probably 5 or 6 years ago where I started realizing truly that I could say they are who they are, and that is their energy. Because this is what I say, that is their energy. It is not mine. And it does not mean that there's a right or wrong. This is just who I am, and this is the energy that I'm carrying. So, you had mentioned earlier, sometimes we need to let go of things. It's truly important in business and in our personal relationships that if we realize that someone or something is not aligned with us, it is okay to either let go or to pivot, because that just means that we need to change. And there's nothing wrong with the change in direction that we decide to take.
Oh, I love that so much that, first off, if you had gone somewhere that was more comfortable in terms of just your own development and age, when you came back, you might not have noticed such a big change in growth because it might have felt similar, right? To have such a journey and be able to reflect upon that and and come back into what was your world before you left and realize, whoa, look at all this that's changed for me, and celebrate that and honor that and carry that light forward. I love that you said pivot with things that might not be working. It doesn't mean you have to disconnect entirely, but it's not where you're spending your time or spending your energy. And that can allow you so much more opportunity and so much more deeper connection with yourself to really honor that. So I so appreciate you sharing those lessons with us. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I would love to give you a few minutes to just brag on what you have going on and tell us what's in store and what you're up to right now.
Sure. Well, so right now I'm actually in the middle of my book promotion, Heart Place, which you have spoken about, which I will say is available on uh, Amazon. It's Books a Million, Barnes and Noble. And for me, it's really more of a movement. As I said, it's just a catalyst that I really want people to see the profound and lasting change that we can create in our lives when we find that balance of body, mind, spirit, and love, and the co-creation and the collaboration, the energy that I spoke about. And it's also, for me, it's like a shift of kind of cultural norms for greater empathy, understanding, and collaboration. And it's that community building, the collective strength and the strengthening. And I'm going back to my fabric and the tapestry, but it's the strengthening of the social fabric. So I'm in book promo. I have a podcast called The Synergy Sisters
Mhm.
with my brilliant friend, and she's definitely a fellow heart-centered connector, Debbie Prediger. So we have that, and it's on Apple and on my website, maryhelengervais.com. There's a meditation series that goes with Heart Blaze, and then I have two other books that are there. I do masterminds. We do international retreats, and I've got one that I'm going to be announcing soon, um, or it'll probably be late spring next year, but very excited about that. And I will say it's going to South America. Um,
Back to the roots.
back to the roots. And because I want to share the energy and the adventure of there. So those are the things that I have going on. And then, we know each other from network marketing. And for me, that is where the body and mind come in, because
Mhm.
I just am so passionate about fueling our bodies with just nutritionally dense products. And I love working with companies who want to bring in an additional revenue stream. Because for me, as in working in the entrepreneurial world for so long, you and I both know that if you can have, I call it the slush fund for the snowstorm, for the hurricane, if you need a new equipment, any of those things. So that is just another passion of mine, is helping entrepreneurs and individuals have an additional revenue stream, because it is all about creating that balance in our lives.
Oh, I love that so much. And that could be the next time we get together to chat, is talking about kind of that money essence behind all of us. And I know we've spoken about that in the past, that it's such a
Hmm.
core behind business that so many are maybe apprehensive to talk about, but such an important component. And I will kind of dangle that carrot out there for for something in the future. But I think it sounds like folks can connect with you through your website, and we'll drop that information into the notes from this episode. As we're getting ready to wrap up, I wonder if there's a single piece of advice that you would have for the listeners today, something maybe that was shared with you, or that maybe you learned along the way, but any kind of nugget to drop as we're closing out our chat today.
Live authentically.
Mm,
And when I say that, Be you, be true to yourself, to your heart, and embody your core essence. When you think about, what do I love to do? What makes me happy? What brings me joy? What comes easily to me? That is your core essence. So live it authentically, and see how you can incorporate that into your life every day. And that is when I think everyone finds their true self.
I love that so much, Mary. And I sign off each podcast with a quote. And the quote that I had found for us today is from Maya Angelou. It says, "The desire to reach for the stars is ambitious. The desire to reach hearts is wise." And I selected that before you just shared your last piece of advice, but wow, it's such a core for so many to reach into the heart, and I am grateful from the bottom of my heart for you to chat and share some time with us today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. And I sign off with love and gratitude.
So grateful you listened to this episode of the Inspired Hive podcast. Be sure to follow me on social media at Inspired Hive Podcast, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. I can't wait to see you back here for our next episode, and as always, remember to live inspired.